Think about the relationships in your life, whether it's with family, friends, or coworkers. Have you ever found yourself feeling powerless, or swooping in to save someone, or controlling a situation to feel more secure? These are the classic roles of the Karpman Drama Triangle: the victim, the rescuer, and the persecutor. This unconscious relationship dynamic plays out over and over again, creating emotional chaos that keeps everyone involved stuck in a cycle of blame, guilt, and control. Let's break down the roles, understand why we fall into them, and most importantly, how we can break free. The roles we play: victim, rescuer, persecutor. The victim. The victim feels trapped, helpless, and constantly overwhelmed by life's challenges. They often believe things happen to them rather than because of their own choices or actions. The victim's chronic mindset is "I can't" or "poor me," seeking validation from others, but rarely looking for real solutions. But here's the thing. The victim role is not about genuinely needing help. It's about staying stuck in a loop of helplessness, where someone else is expected to save them. The rescuer. The rescuer thrives on fixing other people's problems. It feels good to be needed, right? They jump into action, believing it's their responsibility to save the victim. But rescuers often overextend themselves, taking on burdens that aren't theirs to carry. They reinforce the victim's helplessness and dependency by constantly stepping in, robbing them of their ability to solve their own problems. What the rescuer often doesn't realize is that this need to save others comes at a cost: the burnout, frustration, and often resentment that follows when the victim doesn't seem to improve. The persecutor. Then there's the persecutor. This person believes in control, sometimes through criticism, blame, or outright anger. They think the only way to get things done is by dominating the situation. The persecutor might think they're providing tough love, but their constant criticism and complaining only reinforces a victim's sense of helplessness, or reinforces a rescuer's sense of needing to step in even more, feeling compelled to mitigate the damage caused by the persecutor's harsh approach. The persecutor's need for control pushes others away, creating a cycle where their relationships become strained and distant. Instead of fostering accountability or improvement, their actions often lead to resentment, emotional withdrawal, and a breakdown in communication. Ultimately, the persecutor's behavior alienates themselves from others and fuels the triangle, keeping everyone locked in their roles, preventing real solutions, and deepening the dysfunction in the relationship. Interestingly, all three roles rely on one another. The victim needs a rescuer and a persecutor. The rescuer needs someone to save. The persecutor feels powerful only when someone else feels weak. This is why the triangle is so toxic. Everyone gets something out of it, even if it's destructive. How these roles play out, let's take a common workplace example. Clara works long hours but feels she's constantly overlooked for promotions. She's frustrated, thinking, "Why does this always happen to me?" She tells her friend Sam about how unfairly she's treated. Sam, the rescuer, immediately offers to take on some of Clara's work duties to relieve her burden, unintentionally reinforcing Clara's belief that she can't handle it herself. Meanwhile, Jenny, Clara's boss, has taken on the role of the persecutor, criticizing Clara for missing deadlines, believing that by being tough, she'll motivate Clara to work harder. But the result? Clara feels even more like a victim. Sam burns out from trying to fix everything, and Jenny's constant criticism fuels the entire cycle. Why do people fall into these roles? Why would anyone want to be stuck in these roles? Each role meets a psychological need, even if it's not healthy. 1. The victim craves attention, validation, and escape from responsibility. 2. The rescuer finds purpose and self-worth in helping others, often avoiding their own emotional challenges in the process. 3. The persecutor seeks control because they fear being vulnerable or out of control themselves. Each role feels comfortable because it's a pattern we learned, often from childhood. For example, someone who grew up in a chaotic household might take on the rescuer role to keep the peace. Or a persecutor might have learned that control and criticism were the only ways to feel safe. Even though these patterns are destructive, they offer temporary relief, but at the cost of long-term relationship health. The cost of staying in the triangle. What's the real cost of staying in the Karpman Drama Triangle? Over time, these roles lead to toxic relationships, burnout, and a sense of emotional exhaustion. Let's explore how this impacts each role. 1. The victim stays powerless, never learning to take control of their life. 2. The rescuer feels increasingly burdened and frustrated when their efforts to save others fail. 3. The persecutor alienates others, losing their trust and losing genuine emotional connection with others. This dynamic doesn't just affect individuals. It ripples through families, friendships, and workplaces. For example, in a family, a rescuer parent might constantly step in to solve their child's problems, inadvertently preventing the child from learning resilience. Or a persecutor might criticize their partner's every move, their constant complaining driving emotional distance and conflict. How to break free from the triangle. Breaking free from the drama triangle requires recognizing your role and making a conscious decision to change. For the victim, 1. Take responsibility for your choices. Instead of asking, "Why me?" ask, "What can I do to change this?" 2. Shift your mindset from helplessness to empowerment by focusing on small actions you can take to improve your situation. 3. Develop coping skills like problem solving or stress management so that you rely on your own strengths rather than seeking a rescuer. For the rescuer, 1. Set boundaries. Ask yourself, is this really my responsibility? Offer support, but resist the urge to take over. 2. Encourage others to find their own solutions rather than stepping in to fix everything. 3. Focus on yourself. Take time to manage your own emotional well-being and avoid neglecting your own needs. For the persecutor, 1. Listen first, respond later. Practice empathy by trying to understand the other person's perspective before reacting with criticism or complaining. 2. Replace blame with I statements. Instead of saying, "You never do anything right," try saying, "I feel frustrated when things don't get done." 3. Let go of control. Trust others to handle their own challenges. Focus on managing your own emotional responses instead. 4. It's crucial to understand that you are responsible for your own emotions and reactions. While others may trigger certain feelings or behaviors in you, how you choose to respond is entirely within your control. Blaming others for your emotional state shifts the power away from yourself, reinforcing a cycle of helplessness or blame. By owning your emotions and responses, you reclaim the ability to navigate relationships and life challenges in a healthier, more empowered way. How to spot the drama triangle in relationships. Often, these dynamics happen without us even realizing it. So how do you spot the Karpman Drama Triangle in your relationships? 1. Are you constantly solving someone else's problems? You might be the rescuer. 2. Do you feel like life happens to you and you can't change it? You might be the victim. 3. Are you frequently frustrated, frequently complaining about others, or frequently criticizing others for not living up to your expectations? You might be the persecutor. Long-term effects of staying in the roles. The longer you stay in these roles, the more damage is done to your mental health, emotional well-being, and relationships. For example, a rescuer might find that their own needs are never met because they're always focused on others. A persecutor might end up lonely, pushing away those closest to them. A victim might feel stuck, never experiencing personal growth or autonomy. In parenting, these roles can have lasting impacts on children. A rescuer parent prevents their child from learning independence, while a persecutor parent can unintentionally instill fear rather than love. Breaking the cycle, a practical approach. Stay aware. The first step to change is recognizing when you're playing a role in the triangle and what role you are playing. Recognize emotional triggers. Often, the roles in the Karpman Drama Triangle are driven by emotional triggers that push us into automatic reactions. By becoming aware of your triggers, you can start to pause before responding. If you notice yourself feeling victimized, or overwhelmed with the need to rescue, or itching to control, take a moment to ask yourself, why am I reacting this way? And what is really going on? This awareness creates space for new, healthier behaviors. Practice emotional detachment. You can still care about others without being emotionally entangled in their problems. By detaching emotionally, you allow others to take responsibility for their actions and emotions, without taking on their burdens yourself. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop over-identifying with their struggles and refuse to take on roles like rescuer or victim. How to set boundaries in the drama triangle. Setting boundaries is key to stopping the cycle, and this means learning to say no when necessary. Boundaries create emotional space between you and the people who may try to pull you into the triangle. Communicate clearly and firmly. Boundaries require clear and assertive communication. For instance, a rescuer might say, "I can see you're going through something tough, but I believe you can handle this on your own." This statement sets a boundary while also encouraging the victim to take responsibility for their own situation. It's about offering support without taking over. Set limits on time and energy. In relationships where someone frequently falls into the victim role, you can set a boundary by limiting your time and energy. For example, you might say, "I care about you, but I don't have the capacity to talk about this for hours every day. Let's set a time limit." This protects your emotional energy while still expressing care. Refuse to be pulled into the conflict. If you notice someone trying to drag you into a drama, whether as a rescuer, victim, or persecutor, consciously choose not to engage. You might say, "I don't think it's helpful for me to get involved in this right now," or "I can support you, but I can't fix this for you." This is refusing to play along. Use I statements. When setting boundaries, it's helpful to focus on your own experience, using I statements rather than blame. For instance, "I feel uncomfortable when the conversation turns into blaming. Can we shift the focus to finding solutions?" This keeps the communication clear and avoids escalating the conflict. Stepping out of the drama. When to refuse to play along. Sometimes the only way to stop the drama triangle is to consciously step out of it. This means refusing to play any of the roles when you recognize the pattern unfolding. Here's how. Recognize the pattern. The first step is always recognizing when you're being drawn into the triangle. When someone approaches you as a victim, rescuer, or persecutor, be mindful of your own reaction. Ask yourself, am I about to fall into one of these roles? Respond instead of reacting. When you feel the impulse to rescue or to retaliate against someone acting like a persecutor, pause. Take a breath and think about how you can respond rather than react. Responding might mean taking a step back, offering supportive words without offering to solve the problem, or calmly refusing to engage in the blame game. Don't take the bait. Sometimes people who play the victim or persecutor will try to push you into a role by provoking an emotional reaction. If a persecutor criticizes you, for example, they might be trying to pull you into the victim role. Rather than reacting emotionally, you can calmly say, "I'm not going to engage in this conversation if it's about blame or criticism." Know when to walk away. There are times when you might need to completely remove yourself from the situation. If you recognize that someone is consistently pulling you into the triangle and refuses to break the cycle themselves, it may be necessary to step away, either temporarily or permanently. You can say, "I don't think this conversation is productive right now, so I'm going to take a break." When to refuse to play along. Sometimes, the best strategy is simply to refuse to engage in the drama altogether. Here's how. Be direct. If someone is attempting to involve you in their drama, whether by complaining about their life, victim, or trying to control you, persecutor, you can set a firm boundary by saying, "I'm not willing to participate in this right now." This signals that you won't take on their emotions or get involved in their emotional game. Establish clear expectations. For example, if you're dealing with a rescuer who continually tries to fix things for you, it's okay to say, "I appreciate your help, but I need to figure this out on my own." This sets the expectation that you don't want them stepping in, and it empowers you to take control of the situation. Acknowledge, but don't engage. If someone is fishing for sympathy by playing the victim, acknowledge their feelings without taking on their problems. For example, you could say, "I'm sorry you're going through this," but stop there. Avoid offering advice or solutions unless asked. Refuse to accept blame. If a persecutor is trying to make you feel guilty or responsible for their problems, firmly state, "I'm sorry you're feeling this way, but I don't believe I'm responsible for that." Refusing to take the blame helps protect your emotional boundaries and prevents you from falling into the victim role. Additional practical tips to stop drama. Once it's started, de-escalate tensions. If the drama is already in motion, work to de-escalate it by staying calm. Emotions fuel the triangle, so the calmer you remain, the harder it is for others to pull you in. Encourage ownership of emotions. Gently remind those involved that they are responsible for their own emotions. You might say, "I understand you're upset, but I believe it's important to focus on what we can each do to improve the situation." Reframe the conversation. When you notice the conversation spiraling into blame or criticism, try to reframe it by asking, "How can we work together to solve this problem?" Or, "What would be a productive next step?" Shifting from blame to problem solving takes the focus off the triangle dynamics. Avoid feeding the cycle. Drama thrives on emotional energy. When someone is engaging in victimhood or trying to provoke you as a persecutor, avoid giving them the emotional response they are seeking. Respond with neutrality or empathy, but don't engage in escalating the conflict. Stepping out for good. Finally, recognize that stepping out of the Karpman Drama Triangle is not just a one-time decision. It's a continuous practice. Whenever you feel the urge to slip back into a familiar role, remind yourself of the power you have to choose your response. Stay committed to emotional boundaries, communicating boundaries, and self-awareness. And over time, these new habits will become second nature. Breaking free from the triangle will allow you to build healthier, more fulfilling relationships, free from the toxic patterns that once held you back. Staying stuck in drama triangles is not worth it. Final thought, as Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Recognizing the Karpman Drama Triangle in your relationships is the first step toward creating more authentic connections and living with intention instead of getting caught up in unconscious emotional patterns. If you find it difficult to break free on your own, consider seeking professional help. Sometimes, having an outside perspective can make all the difference in reclaiming your emotional freedom.